The Electoral Commission has set out a 6-month period for further inputs and consultations on the discussion documents on e-voting that will eventually be sent to Parliament. The public is urged to make their contributions on the IEC's website. The IEC concluded a 3-day conference today that discussed the feasibility, sustainability and policy implications of electronic voting. The event saw various countries share their experiences regarding the e-voting, while exhibitors also displayed their e-voting. The IEC has urged South African citizens to make their inputs on the discussion documents. Those who want to have a say on the prospects of electronic voting have until September to make their contributions on the Commission's website. The Commission has reiterated that any options put on the table regarding e-voting would be evidence-based. The Commission is adamant that whatever decision is made on the use of e-voting, it will not be made while current inefficiencies such as load shedding continue to plague the country. Let's expand the conversation. Martin Grunewald, Chief Executive of Global Growth Secure Citizen, joins us to discuss this. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, coming out of the conference, we've heard the advantages of online voting far outweigh the disadvantages. Why e-voting?
Thanks, Mpho. Thanks for having me this evening. I think a lot of technology is moving that way. You've heard the minister speak at this conference around where the world is moving, how he wants to embrace digital identity. I think there's a lot of anxiety that comes with this, but I think that it's immediately a virtual world and maybe you're just voting on your phone or things like that. I think it'll be a gradual implementation. I think, we can start off with things as simple as digitizing the counting process, where people can still vote on paper ballots, but those are digitized in terms of OCR readers and things like that to automate the process. But then you can also have voting machines in the same venues that people vote today. I think it's all about just trying to make it smoother. I said to somebody today that I think we take pride in when the long queues back in 1994 when we all voted for the first time, but it shouldn't really be a heritage that we keep with people having to stand all day in long queues.
Yeah. As you speak about what kind of, feelings and emotions, the anxieties which come with the change, we know that the digital illiteracy among voters is also a huge issue. How will such challenges need to be overcome?
I think, we're having about a 75% penetration in South Africa with people using the internet. I think our literacy is definitely increasing. And I think that staged implementation that I mentioned is part of how we can solve that problem, where it doesn't mean that voting stations just disappear overnight, but we can certainly start automating those processes and make sure that there's proper audit trails and that people don't have to stand all day in queues. I think that kind of voting kiosk concept and that little video clip you showed of the event, you could see people demonstrating those. But I think in the future, and that's what really is exciting, I think, the Minister of Home Affairs was talking about digital identity. I think that forms a whole basis of a future voting platform for the country. In the presidency recently spoke about us in terms of DHA, or SARS and the South African Reserve Bank all collaborating on trying to solve for digital identity in South Africa. And I think if we start through those phases, start with the kiosk, start automating things, making sure it's traceable and trackable, then by the time we have something like digital identity, then the literacy will follow and we can implement implement a much more virtual world even of voting. And old people struggle to get to venues. Sometimes people have to travel far.
Yeah.
I think there's unique ways of trying to solve these things, and I think engaging with the public like they have, I think the IEC is starting to at least apply their minds about the future and let's start thinking, 6 to 10 years out instead of being reactive to these things.
The public has since been urged to make their contributions on the IEC's website. What kind of contributions should one be thinking of as you think about whether or not to have your say?
Look, I think there's probably layers of that too. I think as the public, as individuals, I think where we have fears, where we've got questions, let's pose those. But I think so often we get into blame games in the country where private sector blames government, government blames private sector. I think this is one of those unique things where people can contribute on how they can become part of the solution instead of just pointing out problems. And honestly, I'd love to see people who want to contribute really contribute solutions. There's lots of homegrown technology in South Africa. People who can really go and say, hang on, we can contribute in this way, and we think the problem can be solved this way. We know ourselves the best. And I think hopefully this will be a really positive process where people contribute positively to how we can create an e-voting type environment that's free and fair and inclusive. I think that would be the awesome outcome.
As we look to the future, I mean, we were fortunate, of course, throughout the conference to have had representatives from different countries who are using e-voting and advising the IEC that the quicker it introduces online voting, the sooner it can start educating voters on how to use it and get comfortable with it. When looking to the future, digital identity as a foundation for secure elections, what will it take to get to that point where there is that confidence?
I think if we've got that foundational layer of a digital identity, technology that is tamper-proof and fraud-resistant, that allows all citizens to access it. The minister was talking about verifiable credentials in that digital identity world. I think we've got to be brave and actually implement some of those technologies and get our base layer of who we are as individuals in the country done. I think then we can really tackle the education part. Years ago, who would have thought people would be so proficient on using USSD? Even old people use USSD and are completely proficient with it. I think we underestimate people being able to do things in a digital world. And I think if we just apply ourselves and actually do it, we'll be surprised.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for weighing in on the conversation. Wrapping up that discussion, Martin Grunewald, Chief Executive of Global Growth Secure Citizen, expanding there and giving us some reaction on e-voting and the expectations around it.